You're a national champion. It's National Championship Monday for college basketball. Texas Tech or Virginia? Who you got, Blaine?
And my original picks, I had Virginia in the Final Four. That's the only team that's even in the Final Four that I had in the Final Four. So I'm gonna have to say Virginia. But isn't it interesting? I don't think this has happened in a long time. The two best defensive teams in the country are in the championship game. So maybe defense does win championships.
It could be a 56-54 game.
I think that's more true in football than it is in basketball.
Well, Virginia's been lucky.
Yeah. Hey,
like their defense has been good. They've been lucky.
You have to be lucky to get to this point. You have to be really good and lucky. And it could be a 50-50. You know, I'm not saying 50-50 anybody could win. 50-50 could be the score going into the final shot tonight, right? That's how good these two defenses are. Interesting that, and you know what? In the bottom of my heart, I root a little bit for Texas Tech because nobody expected them to be there. And when you're that big of an underdog all the way up through, these guys have just been grinding and playing, and so they've been kind of fun. I'm going to pick Virginia because I think they've been playing with a chip on their shoulder ever since they got eliminated in the first round last year, and that chip has gotten them over, and they got a little bit lucky, like you have to be, and they're in this thing. So I'm taking Virginia tonight, but I'm not going to be sad if Tech wins this thing.
Yeah, they're a top 12 seeded team. They're a 3 seed, so they're good. They're good, man.
Yeah, but you don't expect a 3 seed to be in the championship game. So
now, it kind of reminds me of when Utah, as the 3 seed, got to the national championship game against the Blue Blood in 1998.
An 11 seed got to the Final Four last year.
Yeah, crazy.
It's
I know.
Fun, right?
I know. It is fun. That's what's fun about this whole tournament.
Okay, Vanquish the Foe reports that the list for the men's basketball coaching candidacy is down to 4: Pope, Peary, Madsen, and Lewis. What do you think of these 4?
I love it. Here's the thing. No matter how you rank them in your own mind, the beauty of this is if your 4th choice, if you were ranking them, got the job, BYU would be in good hands.
Yes.
I know all 4 of these guys very well, and they all bring different strengths to this thing, and every one of them can be successful here. That's what I'm excited about. When we talk about replacing a football coach, it's like, man, who's on the list? Right? There's not that many out there that would be willing to come and do it. In basketball, the fact that there's 4 that would be qualified, that would meet the institution standards that are that good, to me, that's a really good thing.
Now, the case of Quincy Lewis is interesting because people want change. They want freshness. They want something new in there. But Steve Cleveland left, and one of his assistants took over, and it just so happened to be Dave Rose. So I kind of feel like it's almost unfair on Quincy that, he comes from a staff. They only won 19 games last year.
Right?
Are you serious?
I think the timing's poor for Quincy a little
bit.
But
it feels like
it's
that.
Hard.
It feels like that.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think that disadvantages Quincy. I think he's a very good X's and O's guy. You know, we get a chance to go to shoot-arounds day of game all the time. Quincy, when it's his scout, you watch him. And you can't say nothing would change. When Cleve left, they were a very defensive-minded type of a program. Steve was really big about defense, and offense was important too. But when Dave took over, his take was, "No, I'm more about offense." So stylistically, they changed
so different
when they went from Steve Cleveland to Dave Rose, and all Dave does. And I haven't had a chance to say anything on the air. I tweeted out some things, but what Dave Rose did was remarkable at BYU. To the winning streak and the streak of 20 wins is not an easy thing to do. They've ran into some struggles in the last couple of years, and whoever takes this thing over has to figure out how to deal with this. Hey, I'm going out even though I'm not an NBA guy early. That doesn't happen anyplace else in the country on a regular basis like this. 3 years in a row, guys going out that aren't NBA guys to go play in Europe. San Diego in that tournament game against BYU started 4 seniors, a couple of which that are G League or European guys that didn't go out early, right? And so the new coach has to figure out how to do it. And I think they're going to have to go back into tapping into the JC game to fill those voids. They're going to maybe have to look at some grad transfers that can fill those voids.
One of these coach gets a lot of transfers a lot.
Yeah.
His name's Mark
You're talking
Pope.
about Mark Pope. So Mark's advantage is I think Mark's a good X's and O's guy. He's got instant credibility because of his history, his playing history, and where he's been. He knows BYU because he was an assistant coach here, so he knows what makes it work. And I think he really understands the transfer and JC game well. He's got all that going for him, and he's a really hot name right now for a lot of jobs. But in the end, so Mark's oldest daughter is going to go off to Ohio, and she just graduates, and she's going off to Ohio to play basketball. Mark's youngest is in 4th grade, so I think that weighs a lot on Mark's mind. Like, hey, do you want to go take this job at wherever, right? Or do you want to
move to Reno,
or do you want to stay here and maybe not make ridiculous, crazy money like you would, but very good money here, and not uproot your family. I think that means a lot to Mark Pope. So he's good there. Mark Madsen, who's a good friend, he has a house right around the corner. He and Hannah want to get home. And I think
what's home for him?
I think, well, he grew up in California, but
Danville.
But his mom and dad live right here in the River Bottoms. They'd love to have him home. Hannah's from here. They'd like to settle down here. And hey, there's a reason that Mark Madsen has stayed on with the Lakers.
Three different staffs.
Through all of these different staffs, because every time they change a staff, that organization says, yeah, but we got to have this guy. The character of this guy, because of who he is, you got to have him, right? So you got to have Mark Madsen there. And then the new coach comes in and goes, oh, yeah, I got to have that guy here. He would bring instant credibility. He would bring the ability to develop big guys that could go play in the NBA. And he's out on the recruiting trail. He's like, hey, I'm Mark Madsen. You know what? You know what one of my best friends is? Shaq.
Want me to get him on the phone?
I have sat at the dinner table with Mark and his mom, Lynn, and heard stories about Shaq and Mark when he was early in his career. Instant credibility and one of the best human beings I know. So you wouldn't lose there. Barrett Peary, who's a very good friend. Barrett, he brings this great knowledge of X's and O's and this great tie to the JC game because of a lot of experience there. BYU needs a Tyrell Lede, a Keena Young, a Travis Hansen to be able to plug in to make these voids that are lost by guys going out early not feel like they're so detrimental to the team, right? And all of that. Yeah. Barrett's tied into that, and Barrett has done an unbelievable job wherever he's been, and he's been in the big time, stages as an assistant at Arizona State, at Utah when they were pretty good. He has had to adapt his style because of where he's been. Oh, you know what? We're going to play up-tempo this year. Oh, guess what? This year we're going to have to play defense. I think that Barrett is a very good X's and O's coach, understands BYU and the culture because he's from here, from in-Payson, and he brings a lot. And he's a heck of a great guy as well. And then we talked about Quincy at the beginning. I think Quincy would change. Stylistically, he's not exactly the same as Dave Rose.
It would be different.
Right. And Quincy understands how to work inside of BYU. But I think Quincy would also have to have a mindset of, we got to go get one or two guys from the JC ranks, or we got to go find a grad transfer, or can we go to Europe and find somebody? And I was thinking maybe Lee Kumar, with his experience over there, could be a guy as an assistant that could tap into that market, the St. Mary's and Gonzaga. But they can't just keep doing what they're doing recruiting-wise, and because something just changed, and that is the really good players going out early, not to the NBA, but to go play in Europe.
Just to play professional anywhere.
Which is a new development the last few years. It started with Eric, and it's been very disruptive. The starting lineup last year should have been Eric at the 5, Yoli at the 4, Elijah Bryant at the 3, TJ or Nick at the 2 and 1, and then all these young guys. Baxter should have been just coming off the bench and learning how to play ball.
Jake Toulson could have been in the starting lineup as well, by the way.
Absolutely, if he doesn't transfer. And then you look at a guy like Harding, who would have a chance to develop. I think that Baxter and Harding are going to be really, really good players.
Agreed.
But they were forced into action way sooner than they should have because the void left by guys leaving.
Man, this is a different time. And I just keep thinking about 9-21 in Steve Cleveland's final year, and they hire an assistant from that staff. Okay, there was no social media back then, so there wasn't like this huge public outcry. It just kind of was off the radar. Very different this time around. Blaine, what are your expectations for next season without knowing right now who the new head coach is?
Well, and I've told you, I think that any one of these guys is going to put their stamp on it and be fine. And I'm not just saying that to be a Pollyanna. This is a really qualified group of 4 guys. But whoever it is, they've got great guards to work with, to start with. Every show that we did this year, we go meet with the opposing coach at shoot-around, and every one of them goes, well, we just can't stay in front of TJ Haas. Can't stay in front of him. He breaks our defense down. We got to figure out a way to stay in front of him and recover to the shooters. Problem last year is they weren't knocking down shots. I feel like Nick Emery makes a big step in being more consistent now that he's here the whole offseason and things have settled and some of the stuff's behind him. I feel like Connor Harding's going to become the shooter he was in high school, now another year removed from his mission. Gavin Baxter's going to show you his ability to stretch the floor a little bit and finish at the rim. And the one that I would watch him practice every time I'm going, man, this guy doesn't miss shots, is Jesse Wade, who's going to now step in and help. He's the guy that if TJ, and I was looking for this guy last year, if TJ breaks the defense down and they help off the guard line and you kick it out to Jesse Wade, the shot's going down. So now you got to think, we can't help so aggressively off of the shooter because they got a shooter out there. I also think Connor Harding can become that kind of the guy. So I'm really excited about the guard line, but I feel like there's work to be done. You know, the open time starts here the end of April where they can go out and recruit. There are some JC kids out there who didn't already commit that needed to get an associate's degree, so the really big-time programs didn't commit to them because they weren't ready right now. Or there's a European, there's somebody out there that they need to go get to help up front on that front line, whether it's a grad transfer, a European player, a JC guy. I feel like they've got to add some pieces to that front line to complement that guard line, and if they do, I think that they can get back to that 20-win plateau and be really, really good next year.
There's one scholarship open as of now, assuming that everyone else stays.
Right. And
so
there could be another player that goes, I'm not, you know, it's pretty clear to me that with this new staff that I don't have a prominent role. I'm going to transfer. So they may have a couple of spots open.
That's what's tough is there is so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
that's why this week is important because April starts heavy recruiting time again, right?
So name the coach this week and get after it.
I feel like you got to put somebody in the place and let them assemble a staff so they can get out here in April and really make it happen. Because there's some pieces missing for next year, but they're pieces that can be filled. And if those things are filled, basketball is one on the guard line, right? So, and here's the thing about basketball. You can turn things around pretty quickly. In football, especially here with missions and all that, and you got to have 30-some guys that can play. Not just 22, 30-some guys that can play. I really like where they're going to be next year because some of these freshmen, sophomores are now going to be. In basketball, if you've got 2 great players and 3 decent players, you're good. If you have 3 great players, you're a top 20 team. Now, if you're like this school's playing, you have 4 or 5. But look at the Texas Tech's recruiting class. Those are 5 way overachievers that are going to start for them tonight. You know, so once in a while magic happens, but you only need 3 great players to be really good. And so they're a piece or 2 away from being really good, but that's something you can fix quickly. And I love the recruiting ability of all of the guys that we just talked about today. Every one of these guys can go out and find those pieces. They've all got credibility. They've all got experience. And this is going to be fun. My dream team is can we get a couple of them on staff?
Yes, please. Can we get one as a head coach and then the other as an assistant?
But say Mark Pope gets it. Does Mark Madsen go take the UVU job?
Or does Quincy Lewis go take the Utah Valley job?
UVU job? I mean, let's get all these guys on the staff. Can we get all of them on the staff?
Hand them some goggles.
That's not that easy, right? That's not that easy. I would love that.
Are you paying the salaries?
So I'll have a talk with Mark if they don't get the job. See if we can get them.
That coaching circle's got to expand quick.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Blaine. Great stuff.